Hello and welcome back to another episode of Dugout Debrief, where today I will be recapping the midweek series between the St. Louis Cardinals and Milwaukee Brewers. I'm filming this on their off day, and so I figured it would be a good chance to go in depth on each of the different players and all the key points that happened in this 3-game set. All right, so jumping right into game one, we've got the pitching matchup between Matthew Liberatore and Jacob Misiorowski. Jacob Misiorowski's been unreal this season. That's all I'm going to say up to this point. First, we're going to jump into the overall stats from this game. So Liberatore goes 5 innings pitched, 7 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, and 10 strikeouts. After this game, that puts him at the season ERA of 4.76 and then a 1.57 whip. And then Misiorowski goes 7 innings pitched, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, and 12 strikeouts, which then brings his season totals to 1.83 ERA, a .83 whip, and leads the league in FIP, hits per 9, and strikeouts. So overall, Miz is like a serious competitor for this NL Cy Young. I think obviously he's competing with guys like Christopher Sanchez, Paul Skeens, all of those different these guys in the NL are built completely different this year. Obviously, there's guys in the AL like Cam Schlittler that are playing really well, but the National League, from a pitching standpoint, honestly, overall baseball standpoint, is much better this year. But he's in the mix, and his stuff is absurd. He's throwing in some games like 50 plus pitches over 100 miles per hour. I don't know how often that happens. He's had serious improvement from last season in all different types of categories: whiff percentage, first pitch strike percentage, barrel percentage, walk percentage, and even strikeout percentage. There were times last season where he kind of looked like he couldn't really find his groove on the mound and he was losing control. They ended up moving him to the bullpen, kind of lost his starting role. But he's found his stride, and really there's not much else to say but I hope he kind of stays healthy and he can continue to dominate the way he is as of right now, because it's the aura that he kind of exudes on the mound is um, unmatched compared to other pitchers, because he's just so big, so tall, so long, and throws 100, 304 miles an hour sometimes. So he's a special talent. And so now we're moving into Liberatore. Statistically, he's been one of the less inspiring pitchers we've seen this season. He his stuff just isn't nearly as good when it comes to getting that final kind of strikeout number. But one thing I do think would help him tremendously would be an opener role. We've seen it with other guys. I talked about it last episode, or it was 2 episodes ago. But utilizing an opener would be very beneficial for a guy like Liberatore, especially in this game, because this game he ends up giving up all 3 runs from his start in the first inning. And in the first inning, his stats this season are 6.5 ERA, and it also jumps to 10 ERA in the 5th inning. But I think an opener kind of would affect that in a better way, the overall vibe, and kind of jumpstart him into the game versus having to face the top of that lineup, especially against the Brewers right now, who are hitting pretty damn well. And like I said, he gives up his first 3 earned runs in the first inning, and then kind of really settles in and ends up striking out 10. I think an opener would really help him and propel him forward in the season, because they need him. They don't have nearly as much pitching depth as these other NL teams or NL Central teams have, and so I think the Cardinals need him to start performing at a higher rate, especially if he's in the middle of the rotation and facing off against guys like Misiorowski. So kind of utilize your guys as best as possible. That's all I'm going to say. And then the Brewers end up collecting 11 hits in this game. 7 of them coming off of Liberatore, yes, but like I said, Liberatore ended up settling in and kind of making it a decent start. Yelich has 2 hits, one of them being a home run. It's really nice to see him back in the lineup. Obviously, he's had some injuries over the last few years now, and already this Brewers team is playing really, really good baseball. And to get him back and Jack's trio back earlier, like most recently, it's only like strengthened their case to win the NL Central, which they've already propelled themselves and put themselves in a great position to do so with the Cubs slide and the rest of these teams not being nearly as proven as we kind of thought. But there's talk, with the likes of Kyle Harrison really pitching well, and we'll talk about him in game 2. But to compete for another pennant race, dethroning the Dodgers will be one massive task, and they kind of saw that last year when they ended up getting swept in the first, or not the first, but I think it was the DS. Anyways, getting swept by the Dodgers last year, they have that revenge, and they're a great regular season baseball team. We're going to see it the rest of the year. They're managed really well. They play great defense and pitch well, and now they're starting to hit like a contender. And so, if they're able to keep this up, then I think while the Dodgers obviously aren't, they're not playing as inspiring baseball as they have been in the past couple years, but they're going to be there at the end of the year, regardless of what we think now, because of their rotation and their lineup. These guys in the lineup, they perform in those big moments. So, be interesting to see what this NL looks like towards the end of the year, with all the different. We made it think that there's like 10 wildcard teams that could emerge in the NL this year, and it'll be interesting to see who actually be locking those positions up, because I think the Brewers will end up winning the NL Central. They're too deep when it comes to their rotation, and their offense has been playing lights out as of recently. And I know it's only May, but these other teams in the NL Central just aren't nearly as proven as the Brewers are. This organization has just always been there the last like decade or so, and so I think they'll be back for sure. Rengifo has 2 hits this game. He's in the bottom tier of batters in the MLB. But nice to see him get back on track. And he's had a better May in terms of his overall season. He's kind of hovering right above 200 batting average, but his May is like in the 230s, so he's playing a little bit better. He plays a pretty decent middle infield, but Andrew Vaughn ends up having 3 hits and an RBI. His return from the IL in early May has been very productive, though I don't mean to be not like taking away from what his performance. He's hitting over 300 at this point, but he's only played in 17 games. His stats against right-handed pitching is not great. Hitting a buck 94, 565 OPS, and 6 hits in 31 at bats. So while he is hitting 524 and 1300 OPS against lefties, the Brewers can employ that ability to hit against lefties pretty strategically. But the righty numbers is definitely concerning, and we'll see him probably in the playoffs facing off against one Christopher Sanchez, or I believe Robleski's a lefty for the Dodgers. I don't know if he's a starter in that series. I think they could use this ability to hit against lefties in a great way, and I think he ended up pinch hitting later in the series against a lefty, but off to a nice start after coming back from the IL. And then another guy, William Contreras, has been a solid staple piece for this Brewers organization in the last 6 years. Kind of crazy. He's already played 6 years in the league. Think of him as Wilson Contreras' younger brother, but he drives across a run, and he's having a great season. 17 career WAR is, as a catcher, very impressive, and hitting 275 behind the plate. Can't really ask for much more. And then I really don't have much to say about this St. Louis offense. They're able to score a run against Mizrowski, but they're put in a tough spot on a Monday after Memorial Day. Have to go face the Miz. It's tough. But the conclusion of Game One, the Brewers end up taking that 5-1, and we'll look to repeat so in Game Two. All right, so moving on to Game Two. Pitching matchup here is Michael McGreevy versus Kyle Harrison, which I would have thought would have been a pretty decent matchup heading into this game like a month ago. McGreevy's kind of cooled off a little bit in those last few starts. Nonetheless, he's still having a great season. Michael McGreevy ends up going 4 innings pitched, 7 hits, 5 earned runs, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. That brings his season totals to a 3 even ERA, pretty much, and a 1.09 WHIP. McGreevy, not really a strikeout guy, but he is not a walk guy either. He's able to keep the ball in the zone and presents a lot of stability on the mound. But in this game, we didn't really see that with 3 walks and gave up 7 hits. He's a guy he employs 7 different pitches in his pitch mix. I couldn't imagine throwing that many pitches at a major league level, and I don't know if I'd want to. It'd be interesting to kind of balance a lot of good stuff versus a few great things. We see that with like Max Fried's a guy that has a ton of different pitches that he can use in his arsenal, and he does it. They all about like before he got injured and he cooled off a little bit, start of May, but he does a lot of his stuff at like an A- level, and his ability on the mound to get guys out and when there's a guy on first, it's like almost a guarantee that he's not going to steal because he's either if he picks over there twice, obviously the runner feels safe, but it's a tough play against Max Fried when he's on the mound. Anyways, getting back into this game, both of those abilities can be utilized in a way to succeed. It's just what you'd want to use is a tough choice. And if you can throw 7 different pitches, why not? But obviously, refining those pitches is definitely very important. And then moving on to Kyle Harrison's his day, he goes 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 0 earned runs, 0 walks, and 2 strikeouts, which brings his season total to a 1.57 ERA and a 1.03 WHIP. He has a 0.96 ERA in the month of May after a 241 in the month of April. So he's had a phenomenal May. In the last 5 starts, he's only given up 3 total runs. This guy's been playing unreal, and he's just another guy that's kind of sneaking under everyone's rug. There are some games that he can be a double-digit strikeout guy, and there's other games where he only will have 2 strikeouts like in this game, and kind of pitch to what's going on strategically in that game as a whole. But just another all-star pitcher is kind of lurking in the NL Central, and not a lot of people are talking about what he's been able to do this month and this season, and what it'll kind of look like moving forward for this Braves rotation. But it's just unfair that they're able to find these guys and make them perform at their highest when they're playing for them. It's inevitable that the Brewers squad is going to take the lead back in the NL Central. I mean, they did it a while ago, but I think they're going to be able to sustain this for the future. And with the way that the Cubs are playing, I think it's wraps. But now into the contents of Game 2. Yelich ends up having 3 hits. Contreras has 2 hits. Jake Bauers has 2 hits and a home run. Garrett Mitchell has a 3-run home run, which Garrett Mitchell has one of the highest strikeout percentages in the league. So it's cool to see him get a home run. But Jake Bauers, I think his season is definitely an interesting talking point. He's a career negative WAR guy, but he's now producing for this team, and like I said, it's unfair that they're able to get the most out of these players. And he's he's really swinging the bat right now. He's just under 300 batting average and 900 OPS. Like what you're seeing from a guy that's playing first base. And then, like I kind of talked about at the end of game one, Cardinals hitters are simply in shambles, facing Mizrowski and then now Kyle Harrison back to back in the middle of the week. Tough. Um, but the guys that, because I haven't really talked about their offense, the guys that have been producing thus far for the Cardinals this season, like Jordan Walker, Alec Burleson, Ivan Herrera, they're continuing to produce, just not in this series, and that's pretty evident with the guys that they've faced. But it's just a tough spot. I think they'll be back. They do they go back home and play the Cubs, which right now is looking like a formidable opponent. But who knows? Cubs ended up taking Game 4 against the Pirates, but on Skeens Day actually too. But I think Cardinals should be able to bounce back against the Cubs. Who knows? It's baseball. Um, I have it written down here that Mason Wynn was playing some good defense at shortstop. And he still is a really good defensive shortstop. But we'll talk about his struggles in Game 3 later on. And then I also wrote down overall the middle infield is still definitely promising. Mason Wynn and JJ Weatherholt, two guys that you like to have for the future. They're still young, and there's a lot of room to improve and talent there. So I'd be excited, definitely, if I was still a Cardinals fan. But I think that the biggest story that emerged from Game 2 is the Uribe gesture that he made towards the Cardinals dugout. It's definitely an interesting one. It wasn't very proper of him to do that. I'm not going to speak on what exactly he did, but you can take a look at what he did after striking out Alec Burleson. Yeah, it's one thing to do that sort of thing towards your own dugout, but he did it towards the Cardinals dugout. I know, I think there was a little bit of animosity. There's some sort of background story there, but we don't know. We don't know what happened or what was said behind closed doors. So it was interesting, to say the least. Anyways, Brewers end up taking the game 6-0, and the Cardinals offense back in shambles once again. All right. So now diving into the game on getaway day. Game 3, Dustin May versus Chad Patrick. Dustin May ends up going 7 innings pitched, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 0 walks, and 9 Ks, which brings his season total to a 4.57 ERA and a 1.3 whip. Chad Patrick ends up going 4 innings pitched, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, and it brings his season total to a 2.6 ERA, 1.22 whip. Getting back to Dustin May, he's had an odd career. Taking some time away from the game, primarily due to injuries. I know he had like a choking scare. Later on, I think he required surgery. He's just an odd, unlucky kind of, because he had a very promising start to his career. Or like I'm written down here that earlier in his career he was a like much better like swing and miss guy. You see him performing with the high velos and high spin rate. Then he had some injuries to his arm. You don't like to see, but these teams aren't giving up on him. He signed with the Red Sox. Now he's with the Cardinals, but he really hasn't been that good this year. His flat ball looks like really flat, while it is one of the higher percentile of the majors in velocity. It's just not where he needs it to be. Uh, hard hit rate percentage is nearly 50%, which is like bottom of the majors and the highest it's been in his career. Batters are hitting 270 uh, as an average this year against him, which is the highest of his career and is not inspiring. And like going back to the fastball, he hit it 99 in this game a few times, which is like cool to see, I guess, because of those injuries to his arm. But batters are hitting 278 off that pitch specifically this year, and I don't know. It's just not been great this year. He has a good start today. He ends up going 7 innings pitched without giving a hit, giving up a hit. Um, but he ends up leaving the game with runners on first and third, second and third, without giving up a run. The hit that he gave up, Torres and left, I think he could have caught it. And it could be a roll of the ball leaving the shadow of the dome into the sun and left. It looked like a tough play, but I think he could have caught it. I say that just watching the game at my house, but uh, I don't know. If I'm Dustin May, I'm a little upset, but he didn't look like he was too visibly shaken shaken up on the mound. Um, that's tough though, because he's had a really tough start to the season, and would have been cool to see him kind of get things jump started up to that point. But bullpen ends up coming in, gives up 2 hits, and one of the earned runs is tagged on to Dustin May at that point. Moving on to Chad Patrick, he started 23 games last year for the Brewers in their rotation. In his first year in the league, actually, he is 27 years old right now, so he's an older guy when it comes to being a rookie last year. But he's only started in just under half of his appearances this far. And I think that's just because of the emerging names that are coming in this rotation now for the Brewers. But he's still very useful from the starting role or even coming out of the bullpen. There's a few different times this season where he's done both those things, and uh, he's a guy that's going to spin the ball a lot. He uses his cutter 42% of the time, and while the velo on his cutter is down, the spin rate is up, obviously. Um, but he gets a great whiff percentage on that pitch specifically, and the velo there from his cutter is near, like he averages like 95 on his four seam, and then like 89 on his cutter, so nearly 6 miles per hour lower. And so that's a tough like adjustment for the hitter to make. And obviously that he throws that cutter most of the time, but he could easily surprise you with a high fastball that could be a strikeout pitch moving forward for him, and I'm sure it has been. But Brewers simply just unfair that they can use a guy like this in their bullpen or in their starting rotation, and he can go 4 innings pitched of one earned run ball, or he go six, or he could go two out of the bullpen. He can do a lot of things, and that's nice to have a guy that's as versatile as Chad Patrick is this season. Um, After the 7 innings pitched of hitless ball from Dustin May, I think it's very much Brewers like, especially against an interdivision opponent, to end up winning this game. It's just the first hit that he gave up, obviously, I think was catchable, but then I can't remember who it was. Someone laid down a bunt, and it was perfect. Nolan Gorman did not do the right thing. There's a runner on second, but he didn't take the ball. In that case, you just have to take the out and go to first and let the guy take third. Um, and it was a perfectly executed bunt. He gives up his second hit of the night or of the day for Dustin May, but that kind of so yeah, it was first and third, but it kind of was a driving factor to take him out. And then Mason Wen, very costly error to get out of the inning, with only one run allowed, and there's 2 outs. Very costly error, and you can't. It's tough because I talked about how good his defense is earlier on, but he costly error on getaway day would have been nice to kind of take this game, especially with the great performance that Dustin May gave up. But yeah, it's kind of looming over them. Two players that I wanted to kind of highlight in their series in the wrong way, I guess. Bryce Terang, he goes over 12 this series with 7 strikeouts. He's been a very, very important piece in this lineup for the Brewers, both offensively and defensively. But I fully expect him to bounce back. So I last time I left off, I was talking about Turang's rough series at the plate. I want to include these kind of standout stats from the series and kind of specific games. But here I kind of show Turang's series and then other contributing factors from different players on each team. Uh, Turang, he he has a 23, almost 24% strikeout percentage this season, which is definitely concerning. But he's producing at the plate this year, so that sort of thing obviously is going to pile up as the season goes on, and it's definitely still fixable. But looking for him to improve on that side of the ball offensively. He definitely still can, but he's been great. Of the amazing second baseman in the NL Central this year, he's been atop of it. So look forward to him bouncing back against the Houston Astros this next series. And then Alec Burleson was another one. Uh, 1 for 12 on the series. He's had a pretty hot last couple weeks, so he's a big contributor. Hits in the three hole, sometimes cleanup for the Cardinals based on Jordan Walker's availability and where they kind of slot him in. But uh, I'll see him getting back on track against the Cubs as well. Their pitching rotation hasn't nearly been performing as well as they had been starting the year, so I don't think the Burleson one is nearly as concerning as Turang, just because of the matchups that the Cardinals went through pitching wise. But I think both these guys will get back on track in no time. It was just I thought something to note, especially with the way that the Brewers offense kind of performed this series. Turang was kind of a nothing burger, 7 strikeouts, 0 for 12. I think that's definitely something that kind of looms over this this team. So that concludes game three. The Brewers ended up taking that game 2-1, coming back after a Dustin May almost masterclass. Um, yeah, overall, not the result that the Cardinals wanted. Scoring just 2 runs all series and hitting 177 at the plate with 27 or 26 strikeouts. Uh, tough, tough series for the Cardinals. Middle of the week, up in Milwaukee. Look to them kind of bounce back on this weekend series against the Cubs. I'm definitely fully expecting that. The Cubs have had a tough go at it the last few weeks, but yeah, I think this was just a tough spot in the rotation for the Cardinals to meet, especially with Miz and Kyle Harrison on the mound. And I wouldn't think much of it if I was a Cardinals fan, just especially because the expectations were low going into the year, and now they're not sky high. Um, and I don't know if the Cardinals will end up making that playoff spot that they're hoping to be a part of because of this special season. Just the way that the wild card's shaking out. It's tough in the NL right now, and so yeah, fully expect them to be back. The Brewers can look to then sweep their third series in a row with the Houston Astros coming up. Just further their lead in the NL Central and impress other teams even further. Anyways, yeah, that'll be pretty much it for this episode of Dugout Debrief. If you guys have any suggestions or feedback, please let me know down below. Appreciate your support and thank you for listening.